My top 25 Michael Jackson songs. Okay. On the Line. Stranger in Moscow. Dangerous. I Can't Help It. Working Day and Night. Shout. Earth Song. Will You Be There? It's the Falling in Love. Given to Me. Keep the Faith. That's 11. I Just Can't Stop Loving You. Want to Be Starting Something. PYT. Baby Be Mine. Farewell My Summer Love. Remember the Time. Black or White. Bad. Dirty Diana. That's 25 more. Shit. Okay. Okay, top 5. Okay, I know what one is going to be. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Bonding, the podcast where if you want to be starting something, you got to be starting something. That's just that's the way it works. Those are the rules. That's the order. I'm your host, Troy Bond. Today is a very special episode. The Michael Jackson.
Give me pow ow!
That's a lot. That's the soundboard from Secret Identity, and we just got a little crossover there. The Michael movie finally got announced. I didn't think it was ever going to. I thought I was going to hate it. I'll get into my thoughts in that about all of that in just a few minutes. In preparation for getting ready to do these things solo, talking is not that big of an issue for me. I do it for a living. It's an issue for the people that have to listen. So I try to make it. Try not to, or do not. There is no podcast. I try to give you, the listener, sometimes my supporters, oftentimes harder dick riders for Charlie Kirk than his wife ever was. But my whole point is providing entertainment. And you're wondering, what the hell are these notes right here? Well, as you know, I, or may not know, huge Star Wars nerds. God, leave us. I actually put him in front of my window when I go on the road, so if people look inside my window, it's like a Home Alone situation. Although the Royal Guards didn't really do much to protect Palpatine, so kind of put all that effort into nothing. Like when I thought Tori was coming back on the pod, but I do often read things that are not nerd stuff. I don't always read comic stuff. Lately, I've been finding myself reading a lot of. I'm reading rereading "Why Buddhism Is True" by Robert Wright's fantastic book. All dudes love to say they read like Art of War or I think it's Machiavelli. I'm not sure. Those are like tough dude things. Because they want to be, having the brain of Sun Tzu and Machiavelli is really going to help you out at your job doing construction. I really, really believe that for you there, buddy. Good luck in Staten. No, shout out to Staten Island. Like most New Yorkers, I've been to Florida more times than Staten. What is the name of this book? I can tell you what I've read this year, if that'll make it easier. I won't go over everything because there's a point here I'm trying to make. Let's see if there's anything I would recommend to everybody. I reread Wishful Drinking by Carrie Fisher. I think she's just the most prolific writer ever, and the way she has her way with words just makes me want to be so much smarter, and her awareness for what was wrong with her was so naked, and so you couldn't help but relate to it because we all feel that down, and we try to hide it, and Carrie very much never hid it and was just like, this is who I am. I really don't give a fuck if you like it or not. That was one book, Wishful Drinking. Damn Fine Story by Chuck Wendig, who, if you're a Star Wars nerd, he wrote the Aftermath trilogy. Really taught me a lot about narrative and structure, because I'm trying to be something of a writer myself, Peter. The great book. I know it's going to sound nerdy, because it is. It's called The Zen of R2-D2. Really loved that book. Michael Jackson by J. Randy Taraborelli. Becoming Batman, The Possibility of a Superhero. And where's the one? I bought this one thinking it was going to teach me the lessons the other one taught me. The Way of the Superior Man. Jesus Christmas. Ladies, if you're on a date with that dude, and he tells you that that's the book that changed his life, he's going to hit you at some point, or he's going to refer to you as a female. I'm not saying that there's not important things that could be learned from that book, but I remember when I read it in like 2020, my friend Joe Rinaldi pulled me aside and he was like, dude, you're weird, you're different. And I was, because everybody wants to be superior, but there's a certain level of the same amount of uranium that makes nuclear missiles dangerous is the same level of testosterone men can often have inside of them that will make them dangerous. So I went right back to tucking my dick in between my legs after that. But Capitalist Realism was a very, very, very good book, but it was narrated by Russell Brand. I just couldn't stand to listen to a 3-hour book with a guy like this who, like, I was a sex pest, yeah, but you know what you're supposed to do when you get cancelled? You're supposed to become an alt-right grifter. The book that led me to the... I didn't want to read... I tried to read The Prince, Machiavelli. It was a lot. I felt like Tony Sopranos. I come out, they give me the Cliff Notes once, and it was pretty good. But I don't comprehend a lot of stuff like that. The book I read before that was Operation Paperclip, about the secret U.S. intelligence programs to bring the Nazis over here and help us. You know, they're the ones who helped us figure out that smoking causes cancer. They also put Argentina on the map. But there's a great book called Practical Stoicism, Your Action Guide on How to Implement the Stoic Philosophy in Your Life. And that's one that you can... I've been audiobooking it, so I've been listening to it like once a day because I consider myself a atheist. I won't even entertain the idea of an agnostic because the idea feels absurd to me. And there are a lot of... the things that I look up for, I often look inward for and blame. And that's what causes a lot of this cycle of self-sabotage within me. So I try to focus on the basic principles of Buddhism and meditation, which is noting and feeling. Are you feeling this? And noting, meaning when you're meditating, it's sitting there. You're not just sitting there. You're sitting there. And if a thought passes through you, you're supposed to note it and go, am I feeling that or am I thinking that? And either way, you just let it go out of you. And that's something that I've been practicing for years. It got me off cocaine in 2020, but then I went back on cocaine in 2023. Been off since, but you know, it's life. As somebody who's about to be 30 and my life is going to be over, but I did a lot before my 30th birthday. You face the same trials in different parts of your life, and hopefully the next time you face the trial, you're a little more prepared. And I did know growing up at all because I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning last week to get this beautiful novelization of the Revenge of the Sith book. It's got beautiful lettering on the side by Matthew Stover. And there was a very, very, very poignant passage that I wrote down because I wanted to talk about because I thought that it... maybe it's just what I was going through this week, but I feel like a lot of people could relate to it. Hold on. You know what? I typed it out because I knew I was going to lose a page to this. Okay. All right, so basically, remember the scene in Revenge of the Sith where they say to Anakin, you're on this council, but we don't grant you the rank of master. And the reason why they're doing it is because they're not sure if Palpatine is the Sith Lord, if the Sith Lord is infiltrated, and they need Anakin there. They're basically using him, a person who, if you asked him to be there for a friend, he'd be there in a heartbeat. They're asking him to do that against his father figure. And he has a flip out within the council chambers. I don't know how many of you grew up playing sports, but he basically told the coach to go fuck themselves in front of the whole team, which usually ends in suicide. And after the meeting, Obi-Wan stops Anakin, and in the book, this isn't in the movie, this is in the book, and that's the beauty of like a novelization of a film. He says, your thoughts are of jealousy and of pride. Your thoughts are of jealousy and pride, Anakin. These are dark thoughts. You are focused on yourself when you need... I'm not as good as young Obi-Wan. Maybe I could do old Obi-Wan. Your thoughts are of jealousy and pride. These are dark thoughts.
You are serviced. You are focused on yourself when you need to be focused on your service. Your outburst in the council was an argument against granting you mastery. How can you be a Jedi Master when you have not mastered yourself?
That line stuck with me all week. How can you be a Jedi Master when you have not mastered yourself? And I think that line hits because Obi-Wan is basically telling him, if you want to be great, but you haven't built the foundation that requires greatness, so you're just going to keep wanting it, and eventually you're going to get bitter. He's saying you want the title. He's saying you want the status. He's saying you want the recognition, but you're not doing the emotional work. You know, you're not implementing self-control. You're not showing patience. You don't have any inner peace. Like, you're skipping the most important step. That's why, like, when people say don't let your emotions cloud your judgment, that's wrong. Your emotions are what make you you, and not the other person. And so you should feel your emotions, and they shouldn't drive your judgment, but they play a pretty big role in what your judgment is going to be. Emotions are like APAC for your body. But anyway, the emotional things that roadblock us from getting what we want and avoiding inner peace, that's not just a theme in Star Wars. That's a theme in life, right? Like, there are times we all want something. We all want a job. We want a relationship. We want a relationship to work out. We want success. We want respect. And we want the moment where people finally acknowledge us. But if that want or if that need comes from a place of insecurity or desire or ego, it doesn't matter what you get or how long you've worked at getting what you wanted to get. You won't know how to hold it. Anakin wants to be a Jedi Master so badly because he thinks it'll fix something that's within him. And in reality, nothing external can fix a wound that we haven't faced internally yet. I'm learning that myself right now. I've learned it many times in my life. I'm learning it at this point in my life again right now. I see myself in that. You know, I want to be the best. Anyone who ever creates something or does stand-up or podcast or films, whatever, you want to be undeniable, right? You want to walk into a room and people go, that's the guy. That's who I've been telling you about. But I've learned, and I am learning, that being the best isn't something you chase outside of yourself. It's something that you build within yourself. For me, I think. Because if I approach my goals with this fear of somebody buzzing at my door, 1 second. If I approach my goals from fear or comparison to somebody else or jealousy or that desperation of I gotta prove myself, I'm basically doing the Anakin thing. You know, I'm arguing and fighting against my own mastery. But when I find when I slow myself down and I go, okay, what am I feeling? What am I actually afraid of? These are meditative techniques. What parts of me do I need to make stronger? What and how can I work on me and not just work on a result? You know, not to turn this into a self-help podcast, but when comedians aren't making you laugh, which there's a case to be made, I never have, this is what they're thinking about. But when you do all those things that I just mentioned, the work becomes clear and the performance is clear and the success becomes real and it becomes stable. You know, I had everything taken away from me and I blame nobody but myself. But like I'm not chasing that validation that I was before this separation in the tour, which starts back up in January, by the way. Actually, I'll be in Toronto, November 28th and 29th. I'm not chasing validation. I'm living in alignment with those things that I just laid out. So to me, the quote isn't Obi-Wan scolding Anakin. It's Obi-Wan asking him, Are you building yourself into someone who can handle what you say you want? And that's not something we ask ourselves often, because we're often longing, we're often looking away, we're often hating the circumstances that we're in, but we're not necessarily giving ourselves the tools to live in the life that we get thrusted into. And that's the lesson there, right? Before you master anything in the outside world, you need to master what's going on inside of yourself. Giggity, giggity. And I think about that every day, especially like in moments of lately where I felt impatient, overlooked, seeing many of my colleagues getting jobs that I thought I was right for. It's just me anxious to prove something, you know? And the crazy thing has been that when you begin to focus on yourself, the craft sharpens, the discipline strengthens, the confidence, I would say, comes naturally, but I still don't have any of that. But the success follows because of all of that. And it's not because I demanded it. That's why people get so burnt out and frustrated after a while. Ooh, my Wonder Woman comic is here. Absolute Wonder Woman. Here we go. Speaking of mastering myself. And success happens because, not because you demanded it, but because you became the person who was ready to have it. And that's sort of what my thinking was going into this podcast today. And what my thinking's been the last couple of weeks. And something I just wanted to pass along to my listeners of this podcast, even though it was a nerd message, and I apologize. But we're going to go over more of the Revenge of the Sith book on certain point of view, but definitely want to pick this up out there for anybody who's a Star Wars fan. Now to go to my before we get into the last thing, I do want to say this because I wrote down a few notes about this, about the SNAP benefits, because, you know, I voted for Trump because I voted for the ballroom. That's what I really, really wanted. I didn't give a fuck that these people were going to be hungry during Thanksgiving, is what a lot of people are saying on TikTok right now, realizing that there's a such thing as a digital footprint. I sort of typed this thing up with a migraine last night, and I hope I could speak as extemporaneously from it as I am reading from it. But I just want to set the stage for those of you who don't understand. Because of the government shutdown, there are no federal programs in place to give people the food stamps, essentially. SNAP is something that people apply for, I think, every year. So it's not, yeah, there's people who abuse the system. There's people who abuse their wives, and we let them into Congress. There's people who abuse their children, named Dennis Hassard. You know, like those are all choices. SNAP is the government's way of being like, hey, we're not going to fix this horrible system that we created that you suffer under, but we're going to give you this to alleviate the stresses. It's not going to do much. I'm not going to lie to you, but you're welcome. It's kind of like in 2020 when everybody was like, stop killing black people. And every animation show was like, you're right. Black characters should only be voiced by black actors. And we're like, what? Here's how I understand it. Millions of people just lost their SNAP benefits, right? It's the thing that helps families not only starve, it's the thing that helps families not starve. And because you have some impeccably moisturized, out of touch, weird named bureaucrats in DC who have decided that the budget needed tightening after we build the ballroom, of course. This is the same Washington that can always just miraculously locate the emergency national checkbook, you know, like whenever they want to go to a war with the brown country. We know where that is. We know where that checkbook is. Where did I leave my SNAP benefits? I got you next election cycle, guys. I got you. Don't worry, red states. Don't worry. I know you're going to fall for it again because you're very low educationally and you depend on the surplus of money from blue states to get you there. But don't worry, we're going to keep you in the same place. You know, if hunger had a lobbyist, maybe we wouldn't have this conversation. Hunger doesn't golf with senators, and that's why they don't care about it right now. Pretty much, like the hunger doesn't own a yacht or throw $10,000 plate fundraisers at Mar-a-Lago, or even if that wasn't a fundraiser. What was the theme? Great Gatsby night, a book where nothing bad happened to any rich people ever. Old sport. Hunger sits in this fluorescent lit line at 7:30 in the morning, holding a number card, praying the paperwork processed this time. That's who hunger is. And that's my cell phone ringtone that I forgot to put on vibrate. Hunger is a mother who is deciding on what bill she's going to be able to afford to ignore so her kid can have something that resembles protein. Hunger it's an aging grocery store worker with arthritis who still can't afford the very groceries that he's bagging. That's who hunger is. Hunger voted, by the way. And he voted blue. So maybe that doesn't always work out. Hunger is not. The people who don't understand that think hunger is a and the people who made this decision are allergic to reality. The decision to say, hey, you take Republicans and Democrats out of it for a second, which you really can't. It's a Republican-controlled government. And the Democrats just, I don't even know what they are anymore. The Democrats right now are the teacher who they can't fire because he has tenure, but he masturbates frequently in front of students, and there's just nothing he can do about it because, well, at least he doesn't do it in front of the black students like the evil teacher with tenure. That was a bad reference, but you understand what I'm saying. I'm trying to make a point about hunger. The people who made the decision to say, hey, maybe SNAP, and they could have given people SNAP benefits. They have discretionary funds in there for a quote-unquote rainy day. This is the rainy day, by the way. What are we going to do when there's an actual rainy day? Just send Trump down there to do free throws and throw paper towels at Mexicans. Who knows? When I say the people who made the decision to cut off benefits are allergic to reality, I don't mean it in a witty, metaphorical way. If reality had a pollen count, these people would be wheezing out of their assholes and reaching for an EpiPen like they are living in one of their opioid-ridden red states that are addicted to oxy. Or, I don't know, a Lifetime movie. And Final Destination had a baby, and nobody could find the EpiPen. I don't know. It's an crazy level of distress, and that's the allergy to reality that these people who thought we could just wait it out with these benefits have, right? And the funny thing is these motherfuckers have the. I don't even get angry at their hypocrisy anymore because it doesn't work, but they have the balls to talk about personal responsibility. The way I talk about how my haircut looks, with denial and delusion, because that's just the only option I have. They imagine poverty as a choice, these people, right? You have to understand that. And it's a lifestyle brand to them. Poverty, right? Like they poverty is a spring collection that comes in Auburn and Forever Anxiety. Like they have never stood in a pantry line. Not once. They have never had to calculate gas mileage to see whether they can make it to work without crying. I remember my last 3 months of my senior year in high school, we had no lights. Their idea of cutting back is switching from imported lavender scented toilet paper and not using the bidet as much. I don't know, or a domestically sourced eucalyptus blend. And I'm not saying this because I'm on an anti-conservative tirade. I say this with love in my voice and a middle finger in my heart. Let's be blunt. These cuts are violence. That's all they are. You're trying to blame the government for these cuts, or the Democrats, but it's going to be really hard to say that. It's why Cuomo lost the election in New York, because he killed way too many New York grandmothers. It's going to be very hard for anybody to look at this and say this wasn't anything other than bureaucratic violence. And it was done with a smile on their face, wearing a suit and tie, saying their hands are tied, and it's violence. Not the kind that needs guns, because we got plenty of those. Paperwork will do just fine in this case. We're starving Americans out. I mean, we've been doing that for years. We do it to our vets every day. The people who are losing their SNAP benefits aren't theoretical case study silhouettes. These are single mothers who work 3 jobs and sleep in maybe 4-minute increments. My mom works 60 hours a week on a good week. The people getting SNAP are the veterans who saw things that still wake him up screaming at night, and now he's being told he needs to prove he's trying hard enough to eat. Why don't you try that? Why don't you prove that you're trying hard enough to eat? Foot splints? Oh, it looks like you did a good job at that. You know, the people whose benefits are being denied is the elderly woman who survived everything this country could throw at her just to be betrayed by her own government. The cruelest thing about America is how easily it forgets who keeps it running. It was supposed to be us. And now what are they going to say? There's food banks. Starting to look like those are running out. But there's also hospitals, but that doesn't mean you go around breaking people's legs for fun. Food banks they're already overwhelmed. That is why they are food banks. You ever been to a fucking food bank? It makes Trader Joe's look like an IKEA. They're held together by volunteers, duct tape, and I was gonna say God's thinnest patience, but if there was one, maybe we wouldn't have a food bank to begin with. I don't know. We don't need more charity. We need less cruelty. If I were in Congress, I would tell Congress to sit with the people that they're starving with. Right? Like, let them explain fiscal responsibility. Tell them to pull them up by their bootstraps. Tell them. I really want to see you do that. Tell it to a woman whose child has a growling stomach that you can hear 2 doors down. I'd tell them to bring forks. No one's eating with their hands. This country seems to think that it's the hero of its own story, and I know a lot about superheroes. They don't starve their own people. Heroes don't step on the poor and then ask why they look so small. Heroes don't say, hey, let them learn how to fish while they're poisoning the river. Like, I'm tired. You're tired. Maybe you're thriving. I don't know. We're all tired. But hunger is exhausting. And if America wants to call itself a superpower, then maybe it can start by having the superpower to make people eat or have the resources to. Because I believe not a single human being should go hungry, except maybe the motherfuckers who are responsible for getting these benefits taken away. You know the old saying, the revolution won't be televised because it's going to be happening in a grocery aisle and the shelves are going to be empty. And it's important now more than ever to have boundless compassion and understanding, because I don't want to get all kumbaya and everything about it, but like, I feel that starting to slip away, and then I fear once we do, there might not be coming any back from it. There already might not be coming back from it. And that's why the election of Mamdani was so inspiring to me, because that was done by the people, not just young people either. The ones who always get shit on for not voting. I saw so many people who had with gray hairs with Mamdani pins. And why? Why did people love Mamdani? Because he talked about getting things right for the neighborhoods that people lived in. Things New Yorkers cared about. New Yorkers don't give a fuck about Donald Trump. New Yorkers don't give a fuck about them sending troops to other places. We're all just trying. In New York, everybody's trying to survive. In the rest of the country, everybody wants to live a life. And here comes this guy, this kid, one of the youngest officials I've ever seen in my entire life, public officials, who comes in and says, hey, these things that we want to do are possible, and here's how we make them possible. And right now, my number one op is a guy who just can't stop touching tit. And Cuomo stayed in the race because there was a line that Mark Hamill had deleted in the first Star Wars movie, but it was fear is their greatest ally. And that was the campaign they tried to run against Mamdani. It was, hey, this guy is a socialist. He's a communist. He's going to take all these things away from you and give them to rich crackhead, or give them to the people who are the reason why the deodorant's locked up. And the people looked at that and said, fuck you, dude. That's exactly what you want to do with your rich friends, and that's going to impact our lives way more. Let's put our money together. Let's put our resources together and actually get somebody in there where it might actually make a change. Now, here's the other thing. God, I hope he gets it right. I really hope he gets it right. Somebody voted for Bernie 3 times, and I've always wanted this. I hope he puts the right people around him. This is seemingly the first normal guy New York has ever elected. And I can't wait to see who Eric Adams endorses, even though the election was 3 days ago. Anyway, I didn't mean to get it off on a soapbox at the beginning of the pod, but I had some ideas that I wanted to just sort of get off my head. And the best part about not having a co-host right now is I can just do all that. And I'm sure many of you clicked away already. Let's talk about Michael Jackson. Right now I'm reading this book. It's called You've Got Michael. And it's about a guy who is a marketing contact for Epic Records, and then he got to work as a project manager for a product manager for Michael's History album, which Michael says he couldn't listen to back a lot because it was his angriest album, because that was the album that came out right after the allegations in '93, obviously. But okay, so the Michael Jackson movie, Michael, as it were. I'll be honest with you. I've hated every live action portrayal of Michael Jackson I've ever seen in my life. When I was a kid, the first Michael Jackson movie I saw was with Flex Alexander. I think it was called Man in the Mirror, the Michael Jackson story. And it's so bad that it makes The Room look like Dune 2. Like it's a great watch, though. If you get a chance, you really should watch it. But it's horrible. Then you'd see him in scary movies sometime. They were going to do a movie a few years ago with Joseph Fiennes, Marlon Brando, and Elizabeth Taylor driving away from Manhattan when 9/11 happened. That's a real story. You ever watch the Michael Jackson 30th anniversary concert on YouTube at MSG? That's September 10th, 2001, the day before, obviously. And I saw the Michael Jackson musical. Shout out to my adopted sisters, Sam Howard and Melinda Martin. They took me for my birthday a few years ago. And the thing with Michael is everybody plays him like he has some kind of disability, you know? Like, they play him as if he is this person who has no self-awareness about how the real world works. And there probably was some degree to that, but they don't tap into the genius or the person of who he was. And so when people ask me what I thought of the musical, I said I thought it was a great concert. Having said that, I was not excited for this movie. I'm very protective over Michael. I would have much rather a Prince movie starring Cat Williams. I watched the trailer. I heard him speak, and I said, "That's Michael. That is 100% Michael Jackson right there." And it's his nephew Jafar playing him, who is Jermaine's son. Who, I don't know if we know this, Jermaine and Michael had a serious beef. Jermaine ended up leaving Jackson 5 in, I think, 1978 to stay with Hazel Gordy, who was Berry Gordy's daughter. Berry Gordy, the executive of Motown Records. And out of that, Jermaine had, I want to say just one single, which was Let's Get Serious, that Stevie Wonder wrote most of that part. S-E-R-I-O-U-S. That's Stevie Wonder. The rest of the song is still great too. He had a diss track to Michael, which was very weird. You should look that up when you get a chance. Jermaine, a lot of people don't know, was the lead singer of the Jackson 5 until one day Catherine told Joe, "Hey, come listen to this baby make his bed." And I guess at 5 years old that day, Joseph went, "Jermaine, your ass beatings are done. Michael, you're up." And I think Michael was a little naive to the fact that how jealous his brothers really were of him. In his later years in his life, he understood it. He understood he's being used and he's being manipulated. But Jermaine especially. That's why you watch the Motown 25 special. He after they do the Jackson 5 medley, he goes, "Yeah, I love those songs. I love those songs a lot. They have a lot of great memories with all my brothers, including Jermaine." A little bit of shade there. And Michael got the last laugh because Jafar's playing him. And I don't know how you prep for a role like that. I think you have to be a Jackson in order to play a Jackson. The amount of people who seem excited about it online is really beautiful to me. There seems to be this surgence of Michael Jackson fandemonium out there in the world right now. And I love to see it because he is the greatest that there ever was. You know how I can back that up? Because everybody will compare him to him by every standard, by every metric, all the time, always. Some people are born with greatness. He was one of them. And why I was worried about the movie is because the estate was making the movie. And the estate is run by this guy named John Branca, played by Miles Teller in the movie. Now, John Branca became Michael's lawyer sometime around Off the Wall. And from what I understand, Michael wanted to get that lawyer because he really wanted to show to his brothers and to his dad that he was really solo and he was really about it now. And John was like, "I got you." Even to the point where one day Randy took a meeting with John Branca and Michael was like, "He took a meeting with you?" And he was like, "Yeah." "You got a problem with that?" And Michael goes, "No, listen, if you want to represent him, you can. Just delete my number." And John was like, "Understood. Randy is not making any off the walls." John Branca is responsible for a lot of great things that Michael came across in his life, but also Michael was a very astute businessman. One of the big things being the Beatles catalog, which a lot of people know the story of Paul McCartney, who wrote Girlfriend on Off the Wall. "Girlfriend, I'm gonna show you boyfriend." Michael and him were sitting in the studio one day. Paul tells Michael, "Hey, Michael, you want to make your money in music. You got to own your own masters. You got to do something like that." And Michael goes, "Oh, Paul, if you're not careful, I'm going to buy it from you. The royalty is mine." And then Michael and Paul never talked to each other again after that. And the estate has fucked up left and right. When Michael died, they put out a posthumous album called Michael with this impersonator called Jason Malachi. And I think like 7 out of the 10 songs were with Jason. You look at the Michael Jackson estate versus the Prince estate, and the Prince estate kills it. They are keeping us fed. The Michael estate just loves, "Please, sir, I want some more. I would love another album that's not just a Halloween mix or L.A. Reid and Timbaland doing all these outtakes from history and Invincible." We can't have that. Fuck it. The popularity of Michael Jackson is highest than it's ever been in the last 10 years, but we don't need to give anybody a 4K video concert release, and I know y'all motherfuckers are sitting on it. But I digress. I did not have a lot of faith in this movie. After seeing Jafar, I have faith in the performance. What I didn't have a lot of faith in was the story because I heard it was going to be done after the 80s, the bad tour. That concerns me for a lot of reasons. I didn't want this movie to be whitewashed. And I didn't want this movie to look like a biased attempt to make Michael look innocent. I discovered that the reason why this movie is being separated into two parts is because in '93, the allegations against Michael were made against him for inappropriate contact with a kid by this kid, Jordan Chandler, who in reality, it was his father, Evan Chandler, who shot himself 3 months after Michael died, and Evan's ex-wife, June. And Michael was represented by Johnny Cochran at the time, and Johnny told Michael, we're going to take this to trial, and Michael's like, can we win? And Johnny's like, I can't guarantee you that. So Michael settled with them. Not a great look. One of the key things in the settlement was if there's ever a dramatization about Michael Jackson's life, they could not include that part in the movie. And apparently John Branca forgot to tell that to Anton Fuqua, and that was a big part of the movie. So now I believe what's going to happen is they're going to separate it into two parts. It's going to be done when the Bad Tour is over. That's 126 shows. It's going to be done when the Bad Tour is over, and then it's going to pick up with him and Janet sitting on the bed in the hotel room writing the lyrics to Scream. That's what I think. I can't prove it. I just know a lot more about this than you do. And I hope they go into the 2000s trial. If you want to read a good book about the 2000s trial, it's about this great investigative reporter. She did an interview with Michael Peterson a while back. That's how I found out about her. That's the staircase guy. It's called The Michael Jackson Conspiracy. Read that this year. Phenomenal. Highly recommend. But you guys asked me some questions about the Michael movie, so I would love to answer what you had to ask me. Honest thoughts on the MJ pedo stuff. Not trying to be a dick. I'm just genuinely curious. I've been asked this before. Listen, if I thought Michael Jackson was a pedophile, do you think I would support him? No, I'm not a Trump supporter. I've done my research, my friends. I just finished this book. What was it called? Michael Jackson, the FBI found nothing, which is about a 13-year investigation of them looking him being in Neverland. And here's the thing you got to understand about the FBI. If they want a black guy, they're going to get a black guy. And they found nothing. Why? Because there was nothing. You look at both of the extortion attempts against them. Both of them had to do with money. There is an audio of Evan Chandler saying, if I go through with this, I'll never have to work a day in my life. I will be set. Not for nothing, too. Also, that's the first allegation, the one in the 90s. If someone did that to my kid, I don't want $25 million. I want to see that person dead or in jail. The second time around was Gavin Arvizo, who was he was a cancer patient, inner city kid whose mother had all kinds of problems. Banned from Sears for making up false rape allegations, hit up George Lopez for money, hit up Chris Tucker for money, hit up Jay Leno for money, did this documentary with Michael called Living with Michael Jackson, Martin Bashir. Somebody should have told Michael, hey, don't hold that kid's hand. I understand why they were, because Michael quite literally saved Gavin's life. Gavin was dying of cancer. Michael paid for the treatment. Gavin got to get married and listen to The Way You Make Me Feel at the fucking wedding dance. If I ever saw Gavin Arvizo on the streets, I wouldn't do anything because this is a podcast and that might constitute as a threat. But no, I don't. I think, I don't even think that he has the mind of a 12-year-old the way most people insist. I think that he's distrusting or was distrusting of everybody in his life, and the only people he thought that he could be truthful and honest around were children. And, I'm not saying that I don't fault him for certain things. Like after the first allegations, I probably would have never slept in a room with a kid ever again. You can make the argument that that goes to show you he didn't see a problem with it because he just thought he was being nurturing. I think he needed better people around him who loved him and cared about him and didn't just want to print checks. But I could talk about this for 3 hours, but full stop, no. Epstein tried to recruit him. He wouldn't join their little party. That's why they killed him. I'm not making it up. Google it. I don't want to get flagged. When did your love for Michael Jackson just begin? I was 10 years old, coming back from a karate tournament with my father and my friend Josh Rinaldi. And Josh was listening to a song called Fat by Weird Al. And I didn't really understand the concept of parody. But I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And my dad said, if you want to know why this is funny, go home and watch Michael Jackson's Bad. So I did. I was about 10 years old and my life got separated into two chapters. I started wearing tape on my fingers. I listened to anything of his I could get my hands on. My father hated that I got so into it, and it's his fault. My uncle was a huge fan, and that finally let me have somebody to talk about similar interests and things that I loved and not feel ashamed about. But he also got me to smoke crack, so, you know, it's a win-lose. But my passion for Michael Jackson remains now because his story resonates with me very deeply. I think he said the best education is watching the masters at work. And I'm not going to sit here and say I don't have an obsession, because I'm absolutely obsessed, but it's more of an infatuation, and it's more of a admiration for someone who I consider to be the greatest artist for my palette. What's that one thing they were in? What Love on Hell asks, what is the one thing the movie they better fucking have right? That is a great question. Man, because there's so much you know what they got to do? They really have to go into his drug addiction the right way, because it's always played up as exhaustion or he's hiding from something. You know, you have to there's a video online. If you watch Michael Jackson and Friends 1999, there's this giant stage thing that comes down, and it wasn't supposed to come down, and it broke his back. On top of that, he was burned horribly by Pepsi in '83. My man had a very bad addiction to prescription drugs. He also, I think they really have to show, and the estate won't because they're cowards, This Is It killed him. Like, he was supposed to do 10 shows, and he weighed less than 125 pounds at 5'9". They had to bring in Lou Ferrigno to get him trained, and then they had to they let him hire a doctor to give him something to wake him up every morning and something to get him down at night. I can't even watch This Is It because I'm just watching a zombie, and it breaks my heart. And if they are going to do this the right way, they need to portray how responsible they are for parading around a shell of a man who was only doing that tour to prove to his kids who he was, and also explore the drug addiction. In my opinion, that's one thing I would really like to see get right. What am I looking forward to most about the movie? I'm honestly just so happy about the excitement people have around it. As the Michael Jackson kid, it's so cool to see so many people interested in something you're interested in. Other than Mike not being with us, what's the hardest part about being his protege? That's not me, so I couldn't tell you. Who is playing Macaulay Culkin? I think Glenn Powell. Why is Michael Jackson the greatest of all time? God. What makes somebody great? Someone who did something that nobody else did, and then that became the standard, and everyone else tried to do that as a result. Shelf life. There's kids who are 3 years old, weren't even on the same earth as Michael Jackson, that know all of his steps right now. He was the pop star. He was the superstar. He was the humanitarian. He was probably the most abused person by the tabloid media. All he ever wanted to do was feel the love that he was trying to heal the world with. And there's a million other things that I could rattle off, but I think I like my politician answer there. Do you ever feel weird about talking about your personal life on the podcast, or is it kind of nice to? Brother, I'm a stand-up comedian. I don't have any secrets out there. Why don't I upload the pod on Spotify anymore? I didn't know it wasn't on Spotify. I will get this figured out immediately. I'm very sorry about that. Will we ever be getting a sequel to Escape? The vault is loaded. I hate to tell you this, but it's very likely that any upcoming Michael Jackson album we get will be AI. Isn't it funny how the Hatchet Job documentary is now a memory of MJ and still remains? If you mean the Martin Bashir one, yeah, I think that's hilarious. And it also is gonna. I can't wait to see that part in the movie. Do you think? Oh, I thought my phone died. It's going to. Oh shit! My top 25 Michael Jackson songs. Okay. On the line. Stranger in Moscow. Dangerous. I can't help it. Working day and night. Shout. Earth Song. Will You Be There? It's the Falling in Love. Given to Me. Keep the Faith. That's 11. I Just Can't Stop Loving You. Want to Be Starting Something. PYT. Baby Be Mine. Farewell My Summer Love. Remember the Time. Black or White. Bad. Dirty Diana. That's 25 more. Shit. Okay. Okay, top 5. Okay, I know what 1 is going to be. Number 5 is... I got to go with Blood on the Dance Floor. Number 4, In the Closet. Number 3... I'm going to say... Unbreakable. Number 2, You Were Not Alone. Number 1, Smile, without a doubt. If I were the director of the movie, how would I begin it and how would I end it? You begin it the night before the first leg of the first show of the Bad Tour, because that's the first time he's touring with his brothers. Without his brothers. And you see him just cool, calm, and collected. He's got on the black jacket, the silver shirt. He's just walking through. He's got his hair. And then you just hear the zoom, zoom, zoom. Boom. Movie starts right there. How I would end it? We're going to talk about his whole life with him performing Earth Song at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, telling everybody he loves them to go home, but they never hear him or see him again. What does Michael Jackson mean to me? He's my idol. He's my hero. He's somebody whose work ethic I've always done my best to emulate. He's the greatest entertainer that's ever lived. He's a perfectionist. He's a slave to his own work. And it's so great because of that devotion and his love for the world and for people and for kindness. Michael's been there for me a lot of times in my life where nobody else was, and it's very surreal to have such a connection with somebody that you've never met before. What has Michael Jackson taught you about writing? That's a very interesting question. That just because it's personal to you doesn't mean somebody else isn't going through it as well. I've never been to Moscow, but the last 2 months I've been walking around listening to Stranger in Moscow, feeling exactly how he felt in that song. Which song has the best choreography? Dangerous Live. That's the best one. A non-negotiable aspect of Michael's life that you think should not be omitted from the film? Canceling the Dangerous Tour in 93, and because that plays a huge... it's tragic and it's hard for a lot of fans to watch, but his comeback and what he did with history is that whole be the hero of your own story thing. I think everybody needs to be inspired by, because if it could happen to him, it could happen to you. That's why This Time Around is one of my all-time favorites as well. Do you think it might touch Joe Jackson's abusiveness toward Michael? Absolutely. And I think Coleman Domingo is going to play an amazing job at it. Why aren't I starting? Because they wanted somebody good. What was that song that you most connected to Michael that started my love for him? Well, the first song I ever heard of his was Dirty Diana, and I thought he was saying, I said no, Edna. And then I told you the first video I ever watched was Bad, but the song that I connect with the most, there's two. And it's honestly tied for first place, but Will You Be There very much speaks to me. A song about wanting to be embraced and loved and feeling you're being pulled in all these different directions by the world, but you still have the sense of duty. You're just not sure if you even have it in you to fulfill that duty anymore. And that's why I love Smile, even though it's a Charlie Chaplin song. Smile though your heart is aching. I listen to that probably once a day. That's probably the most important song in my life. Because, and what I do for a living, that's what I gotta do. Not to say I'm a sad clown, but light up your face with gladness, hide every trace of sadness. For a man who had every piece of sadness ever thrown at him in his life, he brought me so much joy. And my biggest regret in life is I'll never be able to thank him for it. But I will always honor and celebrate, educate, and most importantly, enjoy what he left behind for all of us. Because let's be honest, after I kick the bucket, ain't nobody going to be listening to this podcast. But I think that will do it for us today on Bonding. Messaging was kind of all over the place. Come see me live in Toronto on November 28th and 29th at I forgot it, write it down, but it's the link is in the description below. If you're listening to this on Friday, November 7th, I am performing tonight at Broadway Comedy Club. We got a few more tickets left for that, and I will be at Atlanta Punchline in January 8th, 9th, and 10th, or 9th, 10th, and 11th. One of the two. Check out my website, troybond.comey.io. You can submit questions to the pod or leave us a voicemail. You could send us questions right on the Instagram, or you could at bondingpod, or you could email us at bondingpod@gmail.com, or if you feel like leaving a voicemail, you can leave us one at speakpipe.com/bondingpodcast. Until next week, as a wise man once said, how can you be a Jedi Master when you have not mastered yourself? Hello there.